Hey, good evening, family. I'm here to talk to you about something that's very important to me, and I think is very important to most people in the black community, um, and that is education. So today, I want to make a quick video to just discuss the three main reasons blacks are behind in education. Just before we get started, I'm in my office, so I just want you to take a quick look at this right here. See, this represents all the master's degrees that we have in this household. And so, I just want to let you know that I'm highly educated, but education wasn't a given for me. I grew up in an environment where most people never thought to ever get a master's degree, probably didn't even know what a master's degree was. And so I'm going to talk about these three main things that hold us back from getting a higher education, and then discuss, what we can do so that more of us can obtain an education. So first off, let's talk about number one, which is unstable home environments. So if you want to have your children become scholars, or even if you want to be a scholar, the first thing you have to do is have a stable home environment. So that means that you, for instance, can't be worried about the next meal you're going to eat. You can't be worried about your parents fighting in the next room while you're trying to study. You can't come in the house and people have on the TV, or they playing video games, or they watching the football game or whatever, and you trying to study. Because what that signals is, number one, education is really not that important. I mean, it's just, you guys are worried about surviving in some cases. Number two, if the TV is on in the other room, that shows the child or anybody, even if you're a wife trying to go back to school, or a husband trying to go back to school, and your wife got TV on, whatever, that shows that, nobody really cares about what you're trying to accomplish. It's not that big of a deal. So that instability in the home keeps a lot of kids from achieving their dreams in the classroom. And so that's something that we need to work on. Okay, another point on this one is a mental illness. Now it comes with instability. So you have mental illness in the black community that has never been addressed. A lot of black people, we suffer from all types of things. People call it post-traumatic slave disorder, or syndrome, all types of things we have just from suffering in this country. And so a lot of this is, we've never had access to healthcare. When we did have access to healthcare, a lot of times that access was suspect. You had people experimenting on us and doing things to us, and all kinds of things that you would just look in a history book and you'll see. So we're very wary of getting, any kind of treatment, let alone mental health treatment. But a lot of us need it. A lot of blacks, when they do go to college, they go to college for psychology. They go to college for psychology because they want to know what's wrong with them. They want to know what's wrong with their family. So they're really going to kind of self-diagnose themselves. And if we want to get better in education, what we're going to have to do is, we're going to have to turn to people that look like us and ask them for help when it comes to mental health in our community. And that's something that's keeping us back. And that's one of the main reasons that we have instability in the home. Another thing that comes is negativity. So you have a lot of negativity in the home because of poverty, because of mental illness, and all that's under, or what makes the home unstable in the first place, or not stable in the first place. So that pretty much wraps up number one. Why we don't do very well in school like we should is because we have an unstable home environment. Number two, it comes down to priorities. So when we do have a stable home environment, there was a study that just came out that said that upper income and middle income African Americans are just as likely as a poor white person to fall in the lower classes of society economically. So one of the reasons that is because, and I've seen this myself, middle class black families, a lot of times when they start getting some money, they turn around and they start trying to buy the kids a bunch of clothes, and they want to buy them a bunch of shoes and give them everything that they never had. They want to give them a car when they're 17 and 16 and all this kind of stuff that they never had because they were deprived, because they grew up in poverty. And so they want to give them this life that they never had. And a part of that middle class lifestyle comes with sports and things like that, that you can't afford extracurricular activities when you're poor a lot of times. So if you could put your kid in gymnastics, or if you could put your kid in all this other stuff, you put them in that. But one of the things we're not putting our kids in is tutoring. We're not putting them into any of that kind of stuff. Tutoring, we're not putting them into early education a lot of times, like things that actually not just daycare, but focus on the cognitive development of a child. We don't spend a lot of time or money on that, even when we get money. And so that's why you see a lot of kids, if their dad and mom are rich, they just go into rapping or whatever because Will Smith, Jada, they're rappers and they're celebrities. So I'm going to be a celebrity too. But they could have went to Harvard or Yale. They could have went anywhere just off the name alone, because this is how a lot of those schools work. That's how Jared Kushner got in. You just pay $1 million, you get in one of those top schools, you rubbing elbows, you starting businesses. And that's how you really get things accomplished in this country. And so a lot of times it's the education that matters. You got to have enough know-how to bring a product to market. But a lot of times you got to rub the right shoulders. So when we even have the people that have the money, we don't have the priorities. We care about other things. Another thing under priorities is I'm kind of touching on it, and it's the get rich quick fallacy. And so we look at where do we see people that look like us? So we see the NBA, we see the NFL, we see Major League Baseball. We even starting to see it in soccer. I mean, most of the national teams in soccer, they got a bunch of black folks. So when you put all that together, you start realizing that, okay, look, I see people that look like me making millions of dollars playing sports, rapping, modeling, doing all this kind of stuff. So I don't see a bunch of people that look like me winning Nobel Prizes. I don't see a bunch of people look like me in Silicon Valley. So that doesn't seem like a high probability area that I can go in, but it's actually the total opposite. So you have a lower chance, you have a snowflake's chance in hell of making it as a rapper, as a model, as any of these things, but you have a fairly decent chance of making it as a businessman, or making it as a STEM major, or making it as a doctor or lawyer. I got a really good friend, his name's Kelvin Williams, highly educated brother, come from nothing like me. And one thing his people taught him was, look, you have 100% chance of being a doctor if you have the ability. All you got to do is work hard, go to medical school. Once you get the degree, you're a doctor. That's it. You do whatever they tell you to do, you become a doctor. They can't take that away from you. You don't have a 100% chance if you have the ability of being in the NBA. Or in the NFL, look at someone like Colin Kaepernick, who gets blackballed just because he's standing up for his rights, or anybody else, somebody who just had a bad year, they're gone. Vince Young, who was amazing in college and got to the NFL, had a few bad years and he was out. So you don't have a 100% chance, even when you have the ability to make it in any of those things. You have a snowball's chance in hell, and I would repeat that. But when you start a business that people need, like if you make a water company in a place nobody has water, I guarantee you're gonna have a job. You're gonna have a business. You're gonna make money. So it's about priorities and getting over that fallacy. And then also, finally, when it comes into priorities, we got to talk about how we're influenced by American culture and American dream. So a lot of these things I just talked about doesn't come from black culture. There's no such thing. It's foolishness. It's American culture. And American culture has taught us to play basketball and baseball and all this stuff because that's what white people do. But the thing is, you're behind white people. So when we look at life on a bell curve, a bell-shaped curve, all we worried about really is the average black American. So what is the average black American doing with his life? All right, and so that's where we're falling behind. We have blacks that at the top of the scale. We got billionaires, we got geniuses, we have all that stuff, just like white people. But on average, we're behind everybody else when it comes to education. So how do you get past that and get the average person, the person in the middle, to perform better, and the person in the middle to have a better life and have a better quality of living. Well, how you do that is one, you gotta get away from the American culture that tells you that you should have a slab, that you should be coming down riding on foes. You know, that's the kind of stuff that America teaches you. Because if you didn't hear it in a rap song, you're gonna see it in a Buick commercial, you're gonna see it in a Cadillac commercial, you're gonna see people advertise directly to you and tell you that you're not nobody unless you have this thing, unless you look like this person, whatever. And so that's American culture. American culture is a consumer culture. So you have to get past that culture and worry about things that in the short run, you know, like I'm a professional, you know, I make six figures, but it's not like, you know, six figures is what it used to be. I'm not sitting here with a Rolex watch. I'm not balling like that. You know, I'm just dude trying to pay off my student loans like everybody else and all that kind of stuff. And just afford to live my life and take care of my family. And because my family had been in poverty so long, we're paying back debts and debts from people from years ago. So you're not rich when you get a professional job, but you're fairly comfortable. And so the thing is that you want to look like the dude off of Superfly. That's the American dream. The American dream is what I'm doing is nothing. What I'm doing doesn't matter. And that is every culture problem. That's why white second generation Asians, what they do is when they show up to this country as immigrants, they do very well most of the time. But what happens is in one generation, they've already lost their gains because they start to get into the American dream. They want to rap, they want to play basketball, they want to do what we're doing. Jeremy Lin got a Harvard degree, he wants to play basketball. Hey. He could be on Wall Street, he could be running the country, but he wants to play basketball. That's America's priorities. All right, so the last thing, number 3, we're gonna talk about inequality. So inequality, right? How we even set up our the whole school system in the first place is unequal, right? It has nothing to do with blacks. We've been excluded, but I just have to say that we can try our hardest. We can do everything we want to succeed, but there is a lot of inequality in the education system. So number 1, we need to make sure we're casting our vote to people who, whether you're conservative or liberal, but people who care about making sure that every child gets an equal education, and make sure you're not bamboozled by like things like school choice and all that. And the reason I go in on school choice is because you have good schools that are private schools and charter schools and all that, but it all comes from taxpayer money. And so the problem really is that I find is that when you see those charter schools, a lot of times they're cherry picking the students that they're putting in those schools, and that's how they're inflating their success rates. So what you got to be careful of is that when you want to vote, whether you're conservative or progressive or liberal, whatever, you want to make sure you're voting for people who's going to make sure that your child is going to get the same amount of resources in their schools as that white child, right? That's what you need to focus on, because a lot of times, because of the things I talked about before, like poverty, you don't have the money sometimes to catch a kid up if they're behind because they got 30 kids in the class. So that's one thing you got to think about. Okay. Number 2, right? There's a huge wealth disparity. We already talked about that a little bit, but that wealth disparity keeps you in certain neighborhoods that are going to have less resources in education. So with that wealth disparity, you have to make sure that you're looking for politicians that are gonna do things for you, that's gonna help the economy, help your economic situation. So no matter what the issues are of the day, you could talk about gun rights, you could talk about whatever you want to talk about, but that's not gonna change nothing for you. What's gonna change for you is your economic situation. If you could get somebody in the White House, in the Senate, in Congress, in your state house, in your local government that's going to economically change things for you, that is what matters. Learn economics, learn who is going to help you get jobs, get the money, get the wealth that we've been deprived of, right? That's number 1. All right. And then the last thing is, because of these disparities, we don't have the ability, even if we want to go see a psychologist or whatever like that. That's why I'm kind of calling on my people who've gone to school for psych and all this stuff like that to come back to the community and give, free help to your people because they need it. But until we have that up and running, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to use our political power to get somebody in to places of power so that they can actually say, okay, we're going to give free healthcare to everybody. Because free healthcare to everybody may not be anything to certain white people, but to us, that means everything. Because I remember having insurance, and I would be one of the few people in my neighborhood to have insurance. It makes a huge difference to be able to go to the doctor when you're sick, to be able to go to a psychologist, to be able to go take care of those things like that. That changes the quality of living. It stops some of the problems that come from having an unstable home environment, the divorces, all that kind of stuff like that. And also, once you get your mind clear and your body's clear, you can then start setting real priorities. And so those are some things that come from just systemic racism and inequality in the system that holds us back. So, this ran a little bit longer than I wanted to, but this was 3 main reasons that blacks are behind in education. If I leave you with anything, what I want you to remember is that my family, I'm going to show you my grandpa right here. So this is my grandpa. So look, we used to be farmers, man. This is my grandpa, that's my uncle right there, right? We went from the farms, to I think we have like 5 master's degrees amongst like 7 kids or something like that. So we went from being farmers out in the country in Southwest Texas to having 5 master's degrees and have 5 professionals. And so how we did that was my mom, she didn't really have a high education level or anything like that. But what she told us was, our number one priority was school. It wasn't playing sports. It wasn't looking good at school. It wasn't being cool. It was getting our education. And she told us that an education wasn't going to ensure you were going to get a job or make you rich. So she taught us entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurialism. And so we learned that at home, right? I mean, I already had a business when I was 5. My brothers were taking me out, showing me how to sell horses and saddles, and my dad was taking me out to cut grass. I already had a landscaping business when I was a kid. So I'm not just telling you it's about one type of education, it's all types of education. It's vocation, business education, all these educations that we just not prioritizing. So my mom beat us into 5 master's degrees. You can take it how you want to take it. I am not gonna put my hands on my kids. I know better now. But the thing is, she did it, it worked for us, and it might work for you. But you gotta get the priorities right. That starts from the top. And when I mean the top, I mean it does start with the mama, it starts with the daddy, it starts with grandma, it starts with the family. The family has to set the priority, and then that priority has to be bought into by the kids. If you don't do that, it doesn't matter if they gave us all our 40 acres and a mule tomorrow, we will still be behind whites, Asians, immigrants, black immigrants, and everybody else in education because our priorities are not right. So until we see you again, this is Breaking the Mental Change, your boy Wilford Brown, and I'll talk to you soon.